been drinking from my cup in early hours. It's been teaching me to break. It's been watching my mistakes and building flowers. But how do I make it? How do I think it? I'll never be crowned. And how do I fit in? And how do I get in? Seats around. The word gets around. It's been seasonably nice, robbed my body of its spice and circled hours. Was I ever that much good? Was I ever understood, or even now? But how do I make it? How do I fake it? I'll never be crowned. And how do I get in? And how do I fit in? Seats around. The word gets around.
Hi, welcome to the Need to Know Music Show with me, Ronan McManus. That was How Do I Make It by our guest today, who is a Shropshire or Shrewsbury artist who now lives in Liverpool. And so it's Thom Morecroft. How you doing, Thom?
I feel wonderful. How are you? Are you good?
I'm good. That I believe that song is an exclusive for us. Is that right? You haven't released this one yet?
It's I think the only time I will have released it before is like on my Patreon account. So, and obviously that's a completely different version. So the version you've just heard is even more like rare and unique.
And well, we'll talk a bit more about Patreon later because I want to get into that because we are both Patreon people. But we can talk about that a little bit later.
You say it like that, doesn't it?
I know, yeah. It's a cult. But yeah, so how have you been during lockdown? What's the last few months been like for you musically?
Well, the first thing that happened,
and personally, in fairness, we do want to know that too. But just first musically,
the first thing that happened is I think like yourself, Ronan, like I make my money from like live music, and first thing that happened just before the lockdown properly happened was that all of my gigs all over spring and summer and early autumn just disappeared, and the decks were cleared. So yeah, that was good. And then I thought, oh, what am I going to do? That was the first thing, I think. But yeah, it's been, and it's, but I thought, well, this is a really good time to record loads of music, was my sort of thinking. And, you know, to spend as much time on that as possible, and also trying to get a little bit better at the technical side of it, but not in a kind of get the textbook out way and sort of be like, how do you record a triangle? What's the best way to record a triangle? You know.
So you have your home studio there, don't you? So have you been doing mostly triangles?
Yeah, that's it. Triangles. Triangles, and like I actually have bought some hand percussion while I've been on lockdown. Cause kind of like, well, I've sort of done everything with like acoustic guitars and electric guitars now. So I'll move on to like sort of doing stuff with keyboards. And then when you think, oh, I've done stuff with keyboards, you think like, I'll get some bongos. I was going to buy some congas, but they're like really expensive congas. I don't know. Have we talked about this before?
No, no. They are quite big, though, aren't they,
Deja
congas?
vu. So I bought a children's bongo set, which is all right. So yeah, I've been just like recording loads and using like my flat here in Crosby as a home recording studio. And I signed up to Patreon, and like, you know, I think it was like a sort of interesting time to do it, in that I think there were people who kind of signed up as a patron. We'll talk about it more in detail, but I think their view was, well, we're not going to gigs, we're not going to live music, we're not seeing live music at the moment, so this is going to be our way of sort of contributing to that.
Well, I think I'm sort of feeling my way through that, trying to find the best way to connect with people. So, because I've found it's an odd dynamic, because they're sort of subscribed to you now, or that, you know, they're paying customers, and you're kind of like used to the social media thing just being like a personal interaction. But this is much more of a business transaction. Sort of, feels a bit weird. How have you found all that stuff?
Yeah, it feels very like I had like my first person like unsubscribe for it, and which I didn't feel particularly negatively about, because I sort of thought, well, basically what they'd done is they'd signed up to it at the beginning because they just wanted to donate some money, if that makes sense. And there's somebody that usually likes my music anyway, like I recognize the name. So I don't think I did anything, you know, in terms of that thing of like, you feel like you've got this business transaction. I felt like I was Netflix, but I don't think it's like, I think if people do unsubscribe or they kind of sign off, it's not a massive deal, because what I'm doing is I release an album every month, an EP every month, and a single every month. And like, depending on what people pay, they get that. So I can imagine, I think, you know, if someone signed up for an album, once you've got like 2 or 3 albums, that's quite a lot of music.
I mean, that's just, can I just say, because you've sort of just skated through that like it's something normal, but who writes and records an album a month? I mean, that's crazy amount of creation to be committing to. So I mean, just as a songwriter, that is pretty crazy. I mean, but I mean, you must write a lot anyway.
Yeah, I think so. But I do. I mean, it did hit me once life starts up for musicians again, which we'll get onto. I was like, am I going to be able to do this when lockdown's over? Because at the moment, I'm like, I'm kind of like, all my gigs have been cancelled and the decks have been cleared, and I've not really got, you know, there's not like stuff happening in the day or like in the evening. So I've got this to do, and it made me think, am I going to be able to do? And I thought, well, I probably will be able to. So yeah, it's just been really fun for me, and I like writing and making songs anyway. Like, obviously, whether or not they're any good is a completely different kettle of fish, but I've just really enjoyed it. And it is odd though, because I know some people have used Patreon as like putting out some unreleased stuff and doing some like live streams on there, and just kind of sending photos and stuff. But that felt like more work to me than just making some music and sticking that up every month, I think.
Yeah. I think Katie Tunstall's just launched her Catreon, as she's calling it.
Catreon?
And yeah, so Katie Tunstall's just started it. So it's not like it's obviously there's some, I don't know what capacity she's using it, but for those that don't know Patreon, it's a platform where people can subscribe to creators, where creators sort of getting that direct contact with fans and customers, whatever. So artists use it and everything. And so for musicians, it's perfect. But yeah, there's loads of things you can do. You can provide kind of photos and artwork, and you can do video calls, and you can do all sorts of things on there. But yeah, I've tried to keep mine very simple, just music really, and that sort of seems to be working. But I find it's a bit of an odd dynamic, and to try and keep it realistic for you is obviously the the thing. So you mean you're producing either a single or an EP or an album, aren't you, for your patrons?
Yeah, yeah. The thing I've been doing this morning, because I sort of try and get, so at the end of the month I think, well, what have I got? And I kind of collate everything and look at it, and I think, well, that I really like that, so that's going, and then I put it all together, and then I have to kind of try and get all the bit I find really hard is just getting all the volumes to match up between all the tracks, because I'm not really like a professional, you know, sound engineer. Like I can do things and I think I can make things sound quite nice, but that professional thing where people can kind of take a load of songs that are all quite different and somehow make it so that they seamlessly run into each other is another thing. So I have to spend I have to spend 2 days doing that, because I just think like, and that bit is the only bit that really feels like work.
Right on course and far away, into the steamy piles of a desperate next home day. Right on course and full of hope at least. And if I get drunk enough, I can be the beast.
I've seen a lot of your videos. You've been doing these Beatles.
Oh, I've been doing the Beatles
covers.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, for some reason, like on the, what was, I think was the 50th anniversary of Let It Be, I think I decided like, oh, I'll do a cover of Across the Universe. And I was like, I'll record it. And then I thought, oh, I'll do a little video for this. So I was just sort of, it's not that obvious, but it is, I think, because there's overdubs on it and stuff. So I was like, did a video playing it. And then I thought, oh, I'll do this every week. And that was a stupid idea. That was what that was. So now I've committed myself to learning, because it sort of started an Across the Universe, which is alphabetically, that's the first Beatles song. So I thought, well, I'll do the A to Z. And so making an album every month was fine. But adding to like, oh, now I'm going to learn.
Committing to every Beatles song ever recorded in alphabetical order seems like an absolutely mental idea.
It's a bit nuts. And I've done like this Google spreadsheet of like all of them, and guess when I'm going to finish, like just ballpark figure, like year wise.
What is
I'm not going to finish until December 17th, 2023. So it's going to be like, you know, it's like, I just thought, why? But there's a part of me that almost thinks, now I've said I'm going to do it, I've got to finish it. Do you know what I mean?
So life begins in 2023 is basically what you're saying for you.
Yeah, once this is sort of over, I think.
But I think there's also signs of insanity creeping in. There's one where it's basically you're singing the song to a lemon. I noticed that one. That was quite early on.
All my lemon. All my loving, yeah.
All my lemon.
Quite early on.
Close your eyes and I'll kiss you. Tomorrow I'll miss you. Remember, I'll always be true. And then while I'm away, I'll ride home every day, and I'll send all my loving to you.
I think because I was like, well, I'm doing these recordings in secret and kind of giving them to people paying, but I was like, I kind of want people to know that I can make reasonably good recordings, so that they don't think that like my Patreon account is like me like blowing into a like crisp bag, which sounds great now I think about it. I might record that. But yeah, I just thought, well, they're the best songwriters, and I don't really like practicing or learning things. So I thought I would quite like to learn some of these like jazzy chords, which the Beatles use. So I thought I'll learn their songs, and that'll be fun. And because I have to learn the ones with weird chords, I'll have to get better, was my thinking anyway. And just to kind of get a bit better at the bass and kind of not become a drummer, but kind of sort of start like getting a bit more proficient with percussion and things like that. It's made me think more about I was always, I'm sure you're the same. I was always like, when it came to recording, I would be like, I just want to do it live with a band because I found tracking difficult to kind of be able to get the atmosphere across the song. I've had like, over lockdown, I've had like a total 180 on that. And I've really into tracking and kind of layering things and doing it like that, you know. I almost feel like I'm the opposite. I don't feel like, I guess because I haven't been playing live gigs, but I don't feel like a live musician. Whereas when I was playing in front of people all the time, that was like my natural, you know, you don't think of it, but it's practice every time you go out and you sort of sing and you're doing your mic technique. So that is just touching on things, but that's sort of gone. I'm like, can I still do that? Would I still be able to go into a room and like play in front of people? And, you know, like, I'm sure it'd be fine,
but no, I totally get what you're saying, because it's like, I think all of us have kind of had to innovate during this time to kind of find different ways to kind of connect. I mean, I've been doing a lot of live stream gigs and that's kind of been my thing. But that's been a kind of it's a different. I mean, first I just did what I would do on a live gig, but on my sofa, and it doesn't really work the same way. You've got to. I've changed how I do it over the course of the last few months, and I think it's a really odd thing. So I can totally get your idea from a live musician to, you know, being a live musician and being a studio musician are two different disciplines. To try.
Totally.
I mean, are you finding you're able to find a middle ground between the two, or are you having to completely transition to the studio guy?
Yeah, I know, that's a really interesting. I have done a few live streams, not as many as you, because I've seen you've been doing like one every Tuesday at least.
Every Tuesday.
And I keep meaning to do more of them, and then sort of like just thinking, what day shall I do that on? I think it's partly because I think of doing live streams in the evening, and that's when my girlfriend gets home from work. So that's when I like generally put the microphones away, because she's still working. Like she works in the civil service, and she's going to work every day. And so I sort of think in the evening I'll put the guitar away mostly.
I mean, it's probably a good. I mean, you got to have a balance. I mean, otherwise, well, if you didn't have a balance, you might get out of the letter A in the Beatles catalogue.
Mate, I'm up to as of this moment now. I'm speaking to you. I've nearly finished A. I think I've got to do And Your Bird Can Sing. I've probably got to start.
That's going to be overdub central harmonies and those brilliant guitar parts.
They invented Thin Lizzy, didn't they? With that, it's got like a sort of twin guitar thing.
Tell me that you've got everything you want, and your bird can sing, but you don't get me. You don't get me. You say you've seen 7 wonders, and your bird is green, but you can't see me. You can't see me.
Your hometown of Shrewsbury, I've been to Shrewsbury. There's actually a good little music scene there, I have to say.
Well, you've been to Market Drayton, and you've been to.
I did a gig in Albert's Shed in Shrewsbury.
Albert's Shed. I like Albert's Shed. I like. There's a little venue as well, a little sister venue they've got called Albert's Poorhouse, and they've got a little room upstairs, and that's where I really like to do gigs in there. It's like a room where you can only really fit like 40 people max. So like if you're like myself, where you can probably only sell like just over 30 tickets to like a lot of gigs in a lot of places you go to, then that's like ideal. And it's a tiny room, so you just take a little PA in there. I love gigs like that. Just love gigs where you don't need to worry about like this multitude of things that you do when you play a bigger room.
Well, what I loved about playing Albert's Shed is that I've played on a Wednesday night, and there's original music. There's music every night in that place. Or there was at that time. I don't know how much light is that. But basically, what I loved about it is that a lot of the people that came to see me, I didn't know anybody in Shrewsbury. I mean, literally, it was just a good chance to get out and play a new place. So it was literally landing down with knowing nobody. Quite a few people came to the gig. I was quite happy with the crowd. most of them were artists themselves. Most of them were singers and musicians, and there seems to be a real kind of a real kind of little community of musicians there. And I don't know, is that something that, obviously that's kind of where you came from?
Yeah,
did you find it was a good place to start playing music?
well, I think I feel really lucky in that I think even though you think of Shrewsbury as being like the county town of quite a rural county, I think there's a lot of interconnectivity in the county of Shropshire. So like everyone, in the sense that everyone in Shropshire will end up playing in like Telford and Shrewsbury at some point. So that's like when you put those people together, that's a lot of people. And also, like, I don't think I realised at the time that some of those open mics that I went to when I was 16, 17, 18, the calibre of playing at those was really good. And there were musicians who were like really, really great, like really great players. I think it's got a great music scene. It didn't always have a venue, like a small venue. I mean, it's obviously got the theatre, and so if like, for example, like, and you can always turn a big church into a venue. I think Dan Owen did like 2 sold out nights in, I think, St Mary's Church 2 or 3 years ago, but it never had a venue, and now it's got a venue. And obviously, like, a music scene without venues is a bit like it's like having loads of really great fish, like tropical fish, and not having a big tropical tank for them. Like putting all your tropical fish in a bowl. So it's like, oh, these fish are great, but they haven't got anywhere to swim. So now, because of Albert's Shed, there is a bit more. There's just like more that people can do,
So it's a great tank. It should be Albert's tank.
I think also, I've got to say, like, I mean, this doesn't necessarily apply to me, but also the music scene as I knew it when I was a teenager, it was really like, it was like an older man's music scene. And it was like, from what I remember of it, it was like, my impression of like, it was sort of like older players, generally male. And I think probably having places like Albert's Shed, I'm talking about there being a place to play for people that are like half my age. I'm 30 in a couple of months. So it's like places where people who are sort of like 17, 18, 19 can play. And I think probably Albert's Shed's probably more suitable for that than, say, like the sort of pubs that do folk sessions. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The thing is, I prefer, probably there's a part of me that prefers going to like a little pub and being in a little session and there being a little radio mic that gets passed around. But it's sort of not for everybody, and it can make some people feel a bit alienated, I think, sometimes. So I think
you need a place. I mean, it's very cool looking, Albert's Shed. I mean, it's in the sort of, it feels like, I can imagine playing there when you're sort of 15, 16, 17 years old. You feel like you're playing a proper venue rather than playing in your dad's pub. It's sort of,
or like in a nightclub.
And that's important for young musicians, I think.
I think so as well. I mean, when I was a teenager, there weren't really, like, I think the nearest thing to, like, when I was in bands, the nearest thing to having a gig in Shrewsbury would be like in the town, would be maybe playing the Butter Market. I don't know if that's still there or it's like a nightclub or something else. And you would sort of have a stage, and there was really good sound at it. But there wasn't necessarily, like, I'm very jealous of people I know who've grown up in Liverpool. Although, like, Liverpool music venues are in like serious trouble at the moment. But obviously they were teenagers at a time when Liverpool was like bursting with, like music venues, and live music was still a big part of people's lives. As in, I don't mean necessarily going to the pub and there being an entertainer on. I mean people going to small gigs.
If I trust in you, oh please don't run and hide. If I love you too, oh please don't hurt my pride like
Liverpool is an example of a city that is really in touch with its musical heritage. I mean, it celebrates it every step of the way you're walking around the Liverpool town centre. It's, and especially obviously Matthew Street with all the venues there, the Cavern Club and Eric's and all these sort of famous venues. You're now on that sort of scene, aren't you now, around Liverpool? But I think, yeah,
Liverpool's
I mean, I
really
was speaking to the Mono LPs about this the other day. You know, the Mono LPs, speaking to them, and they were saying about how they all had to up their game because there was such a strong scene and so many venues and everything. It was a real sort of competitive, but in a good way. You couldn't be crap and get away with it, you know.
Yeah, you can't be crap here. It's like, you know, that thing of, it's like that thing where, you know, the comedian Alan Davis like moans about like gigging in Liverpool, and it's like, maybe, I don't know, like, I'm sure he is, but it's like, maybe you're not that funny, because like, I think people are like very encouraging here, but they're also not going to like, they're not going to stomach any like crap, basically. I'm sure Alan Davis is very funny, but it is something that occurs to me when, because I know, especially with comedians, like sometimes they complain and go, well, I didn't go down very well there. And you think like, you know, like it's probably, there's a lot of genuine organic support here, but Liverpool doesn't do like polite applause for things that it thinks are average, you know, because that's probably because of the pedigree and the heritage of the place, I think. And also like, I mean, with comedy, Scousers are really funny. Like, as in all, I don't mean like the famous Scouse comedians. I think they're nothing on like actual like people in Liverpool are like ridiculously funny. Like all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I've got most of my family is on Merseyside, and like any one of them you think could be a stand-up comedian. You know, they're just inherently funny people. I think.
Yeah.
It's in the sense of humour is in the fabric of the city. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I think similarly with the music, I think this is like a musical city. You know, like there's a sort of like, you know, like there's a sort of like there's still let's call them the thriving remnants of what was sort of community music here, I think, which is not so much a thing, isn't so much a thing in England. It's disappeared faster in England, and I think it's still more of a thing in Ireland. And I think Liverpool, because of its Irish heritage, has got some of that, where like everybody in someone's family plays an instrument a little bit, which isn't necessarily a thing in the rest of England.
No, the idea that everyone's got a song in them, like everyone can give a song at a party or something, you know. Everyone's got their song that they do.
Yeah. I mean, that may well be, it's like, you know, things change, don't they? Like, but that may well be a thing that is changing a little bit. But I like that, you know.
The open mic scene's quite big there, isn't it? Open mic nights. I mean, the one I've been up to a lot is the Monday night in the Cavern Pub with Ian Prowse, and that's why I've been there with you. And that is so well supported, and the quality is so high, and you get beginners just sort of, you know, that just turn up and just sort of singing their first song for the first time. It's kind of almost like a safe space for people starting out. But you don't you run an open mic night in Liverpool as well?
I'll just, before I talk about that, I'll just say a few things about Ian Prowse's open mic. That is like a really special thing, precisely because I was kind of going to say that sometimes I think Matthew Street's a bit of a wasted opportunity, and I think it can be a slightly exploitative place, like in that what I think happens on Matthew Street a lot is a lot of kind of cover stuff. The standard of that in the Cavern, the club, is very high. I don't think it always necessarily is in some of the other bars. Like, and they don't, like, they do not pay musicians fantastically well, some of those bars on Matthew Street, when you consider how much their turnover is because of the tourism. Like, some of those bars are not this, and I'm not involved in that, so this isn't like a personal gripe for me, but some of those bars are much better placed position to pay some of those musicians, but what I would say about the Cavern Club, the standard of musicianship for their stuff is really high. And then what Ian's done is they've gone, will you run an open mic for us? And he's gone, I'll only do it if you let it be original music. And I think that's why that works so well, because Prize has basically taken that and gone, yeah, I can see that people are coming to see music on Matthew Street all the time. And at the risk of alienating some people, either audience or musicians, he's gone, we're doing original songs. And he's sort of, I feel like he's created a great model of what can obviously work really well on Matthew Street in terms of original music. Because I do see Matthew Street as being slightly separate to the rest of Liverpool in that respect. And
I think what you're saying about the not paying that well and the sort of living on the reputation, I've heard that about Nashville. A friend of mine lives in Nashville,
right? Oh,
and she's saying it's a very similar thing, because there's queues of people wanting to play. They don't have to try to look after the musicians anymore, so they play for like 4 hours for like $50 or something silly. Just because there's so many people queuing up, someone will take the place, you know.
America's got the tip system though, hasn't it, to kind of slightly.
Maybe you're right, yeah.
But you know, I don't mean. The thing is, I don't think a lot of those venues, a lot of those managers, they take on that mentality, so they're not being sneaky about it. It's just like the way it runs there. But the thing is that a lot of musicians who've sort of paid their dues and are able to do things are kind of going to go, no, I'm not going to do that. So what you end up with sometimes is like rows of bars of kind of beginners. Like, not all the time, some of them are like great musicians, and you think, why are you playing a 4-hour set for like 30 quid? You're great. But yeah, as I say, the Cavern Club, I think the people I know that are involved in doing covers gigs there, I think they are pretty well paid. And I mean, it's not a scene I know an enormous amount about. But yeah, I think what Prez has done with that, not to go on about it too much, has just been really positive. I think it's been really positive for him as well, because it's brought him into.
He absolutely loves it, doesn't he? I mean, he really loves running that night, and he gets to like outfit himself, I think.
I just think that the bit of him that's like genuinely is. I think a lot of people, because you know, Prowsey was in Pele, and he's sort of been through the mill of the music business. You know, he got signed, like they did. You know, as he says, Pele did everything in the book. We got signed. Maybe they never quite hit the big time, but I think they had some big hits. You know, like obviously, you know, with Amsterdam, a lot of that story is about, does this train stop in Merseyside? But he's never seemed like, oh, I don't need to listen to anybody new anymore. He's not really like that. And I don't go super regularly, but whenever I go, I think he's always genuinely like you can see him watching people, and he's always genuinely really like surprised by it and heartened by it. And I think he likes that as well, that he can sort of see what's going on a little bit.
For well, this is the Need to Know Music Show, so we always ask for recommendation, and that's actually Ian's night kind of leads us nicely into it, because there's plenty you could actually pick from there. But who would be your recommendation that people should check out, that someone they may not know but they need to know?
I don't know what I don't know. I've taken you walking in circles with this interview, but the band that they're not a band. So if I can cheat, I'm gonna pick two, because there's an American band called NRBQ. So, which stands for the New Rhythm and Blues Quintet, I think, or Quartet. And they sound like a jazz band, but they're like a kind of rock and roll band who've been active since the late 60s. And they're just like, I think they're like one of the most brilliant and underrated bands. And they've got an album that I bought recently called All Hopped Up. And it's really good. And if you're going to listen to one song by them, and it's not on Spotify, so you'll have to go on YouTube, is Riding in My Car. And they're amazing. They're like really,
okay.
They're my, and then the person
NRBQ.
NRBQ, I really they're my new
Yeah.
kind of like, in the last few years, I've been like, I can't believe no one knows who this band are, because they're
What's
really.
your other one?
And then I kind of want to pick somebody local, which is a mutual friend of ours, I think, is a guy called Callum Gilligan, who is a friend of mine and is a great kind of, really great kind of folk singer-songwriter. I would sort of put him as like a folk, artist.
Well, we'll stick all the links in the description, but we have to wrap up now. But thanks for joining us, Thom. It's been great chatting to you. And we could have done about 4-hour special here. It's just brilliant getting into the conversation. Time's flown, but we're going to have to finish up now. So everyone, check out Thom Morecroft. Check out his Patreon. All the links will be below. So thanks, Thom. I'll see you soon, mate. Take
All right,
take
mate.
care.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
Cheers now.